Welcome to the Zencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the host of the Zencast and the managing director of B Squared. If you are a new listener, then welcome to the Zencast. The aim of the podcast is really simple. We want to reach lots of people and help everyone learn more about special educational needs and disability. In this week's episode, we discuss how dealing with mental images and rewiring the brain can create breakthroughs for dyslexia. This was one of those topics where I wasn't sure what we're going to be going into, but as we went through it, it made a lot of sense. My guest this week was Lou Barnes. Lou is a trainer, speaker, and founder of Unlock Learning. And through Unlock Learning, Lou supports dyslexic children to succeed, including using neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. The Zencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared. I normally mention our assessment software that everyone knows us for, but this time I'm going to talk about EverSense, our evidence and parental engagement system. EverSense feels like social media, so it's extremely easy to understand and use. No training required, really. It's also extremely secure, a safe place to share evidence of learning with parents or external professionals, and everything is stored in the UK. Unless you're in New Zealand or Australia, but that's a different thing. And it's also a great way to capture pupils' voice or use it as your homeschool diary or reading diary. Visit the B Squared website, find out more about EverSense, or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me, and I can take you through EverSense and what it can do for your school. Now, let's get on with the podcast. On this week's show, we are discussing how dealing with mental images and rewiring the brain can create breakthroughs for dyslexia and why it's important to do this. My guest this week is Lou Barnes. Lou is a trainer, speaker, and founder of Unlock Learning. And Lou was a primary teacher for 20 years, but eventually found it too painful and frustrating watching children struggle as the way they were being supported wasn't working. Lou has spent the last 15 years supporting dyslexic children to succeed, including using neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. Welcome to the show, Lou.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I'm going to dive straight in, as I've already mentioned NLP. I personally have no idea what NLP is, so can you tell me what NLP is?
Yep, I can. So we've got N is the neuro, to do with the brain. L, linguistic, the way we use language and how important it is. And that's talking to ourselves and to others. And then the programming bit just means the patterns we run for ourselves. And they're often the deep down subconscious patterns, the things we're not aware of. So, for example, I used to grind my teeth, not helpful at all. And I didn't know how to stop it. And that was my subconscious brain. Actually, it was trying to give me a message that I needed to stop working and chill out. Didn't work. It just made me uncomfortable. However, they're the kind of programs that we all have, patterns of behavior. And NLP can find those non-useful programs and then work with the subconscious mind to change them, to put in a more useful program. Does that help? Does that explain it?
Yeah. So basically it is, there are bad habits. Maybe you can even doom scrolling in this, but it is that sort of thing that you're doing, but you may subconsciously fall into it, but it's probably telling you something.
Yeah. I believe that every behavior is trying to give you a message or tell you something. It comes from a place where your subconscious is always trying to help. There's always a reason. And sometimes you have to find that reason. And that's really helpful to change those patterns too.
I know we talk about on the podcast that kind of you do things without realizing it. There are loads of things like walking. You don't think about it. You just go, I'm going to get a cup of tea. And you magically arrive there with no thought process. And that subconscious knows what you need to do, knows what you should do, tries to help you, or probably tells you you should be doing this. But we don't always listen, do we?
No, we don't. Wouldn't it be good if we did?
It'd be boring if we did.
Yeah, maybe.
So, being autistic and ADHD, is this a kind of I'm going to say neurotypicals are good at this, but neurodiverse can really struggle with this, or is it all over?
I think it's all over, as well as using it in my work with students who are struggling with literacy, I have also used it to do phobia cures for people and help people in other ways. I sort of call it the therapy side of NLP. So anybody that's got a behavior they don't like or they'd like to get rid of, or a trigger, it's not just neurodiverse people. We all have it.
'Cause I know with those phobias, what you're doing is your body trying to keep you safe. And I know we've talked with Ali Knowles, who talked about children who are scared of dogs, and they revisit it when they're 11 years old. They tell you a story of this giant dog, which was actually a Yorkshire Terrier, but they were two at the time. And you have to revisit and go, look how much bigger you are, or look at the situation. It's that sort of thing, isn't it? It's just going, yes, your body's doing that for a reason. Do we still need to do that?
You've absolutely nailed that. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, well done. It is finding it's always our body trying to keep us safe. I really, really believe that. And our nervous system is so deep inside of us that we can't always do it with logic.
Yep.
So then we have to find a different route. And NLP is one way of having those conversations with the subconscious in a very gentle way.
So it makes sense on the safety thing. It
Hmm.
makes sense that maybe grinding is like you're anxious, you're worried, you're stressed, things like that, or avoiding things. How does that work in like literacy? Is it still that fear? Is it partly that fear, or is it different?
Well, I've got my own it is my own theory on this. So I'd say it's partly rooted in fear and frustration. Every body is different. Every brain is different. I don't believe in a one size fits all. And every child I work with, there are certain things that work mostly, but then there's often a tweak depending on the person. So that's the first thing. There is no set method, although it is teachable.
Never is.
No, we isn't it wonderful? We're all so unique. That's part of the fun for sure. So, shall I tell you my theory?
Yes.
Okay.
Please tell me your theory.
My theory is that when we start teaching children at school how to read and write, we don't do very well with it. Sorry, teachers. This was me, okay, for years and years and years. I actually told children lies in my classroom. So might take the letter A and say to them, hold it up and say, this says ah. Well, that's not true, is it? Because it can say ah, it can say a. In the word water, it makes totally different sound. So, and then we do like OU says ow. And then all the children, they learn about, shout, all the rest of it. And if you imagine a creative, bright, intelligent child later on comes to read the word pour, Pour, they go, per hour, power, woohoo, I read the word. No, 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 that's wrong. If that happens enough times and a child follows the rules, does what they're supposed to do, follows the pattern they've been taught, what does a bright creative brain do when following the rules doesn't work?
Yep.
You do something different. Now, my theory is that it's often at this point where these bright, outside the box thinking, intelligent, creative brains, I'm giving the subconscious a voice here. Oh, hang on a minute. I've followed the rules. It doesn't work. Okay, let's move the letters around in the words when I look at them. Let's make them blurry because they don't make sense anyway. Or whatever it is, because each brain and each experience is different. And I think that that's the point at which things can start to go wrong. And I think that's why it often applies to creative, intelligent, outside the box thinkers.
It's interesting 'cause every so often you'll see one of those random things on your doom scrolling runs. Like when if you have a paragraph text, you can muck up every single letter apart from the first and last letter of the word, but you can read them. So it kind of falls into that actually what you're saying is the rules are so inconsistent. I'll ignore the middle of the letter. I'll skim read it, work out probably what it's saying because I've got enough knowledge around what it's going to say, and I can read it. So it falls into that logic.
Yep. So that can happen. And I also, if you imagine the frustration building up, I mean, day after day, hour after hour, when this can happen, then I reckon the safety aspect comes in as well. because I get lots of children and adults who come to me and they look as though they can read it, but they can't tell you a thing they've read.
Shall I tell you a story that happened to me in year 9? I can still remember absolutely vividly. I remember sitting at my desk and I had to write the word in my story. I went to write the word done, and my head went blank. And I'm looking at the paper and I'm literally, somewhere else I'm going DUN. I went, that's so not it. And I'm going, and I just had a mental block. I just went, I walked up, I got up, walked up to the teacher nice and quietly. I went, how do you spell done? And she went, don't be so stupid. Go sit down. And I just had this mental block on this word. I just kept in DUN.
Yeah. Because it doesn't make any sense, the word done.
DONE. So it's like doing.
I know, it
One.
makes no sense, right?
Where's the W come from in one?
I
Whoa. So, and literally, and I just have this back, and that was 30 odd years ago. And it is still there. And Ali will know it's because it has no emotional impact on you. That's why you have all these little things from your childhood that you remember so strongly, because you haven't probably dealt with it emotionally. So those sorts of things all add up, I think, as you're saying. When you struggle with this, when you struggle with that, when you don't get this, you can't get that, and you're going, I still don't get read between the lines. It's like, but there's nothing between the lines type thing.
yeah,
It's in the text.
absolutely.
But why did he do that? Because he's an, and I never got the subplot and the sub content, and I really struggled, and I just hated English because I wasn't, and in part, I didn't have the experiences in my life at that point to understand why people were doing it in the stories. And it's just, so I hated English. All I cared about my whole GCSEs was just let me get 2 C's in English. As long as I get that, I don't care about any other results. I never have to do English again because I hate it that much.
That's a lot of pressure at that age too, isn't it?
But now I write blogs, I write documents, I podcast, I do loads of stuff where I'm doing creative writing or using all these skills. And I'm learning there are lots of rules in English, and also that you can break them half the time. But again, that's the whole point in English rule. Maths rules are maths. You cannot break a maths rule. But in English, there's a rule, but you can break it. And you can break it for reasons which add to. So once I've learned the rules, I'm loving English now, but I still have to spell certain words out in my head. I still cannot spell sentence without saying it that way, because it's sentence, A-N-C-E. No, there's no A in sentence.
Necessary is one I still struggle with. I still struggle with some words too, by the way.
Don't start me on Wednesday.
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 Yes, how I think about it as well.
There's another one. I can't try to remember it, but it was like, you say the R in this word twice. And I was like, you say it. And it's like something about disappear. But it's like one of those words where you say it and then it, and I'm like, why do we say it? Why do we say it twice?
Yeah, it's crazy. We don't eat. Yeah, I mean, our English spelling is such a mix of languages and cultures. And then we had this thing called the Great Vowel Shift at some point, where parts of the country were pronouncing vowels in one way and parts of the country were pronouncing them in other ways. I mean, it's very boring, actually. Don't get me started on that. But it accounts for why we've got, I say bath and someone else might say bath. Actually, it's much better for them to spell it that way.
Yes. Yes.
And Scottish people, they speak even more true to the spelling. But, we've had so many influences. And then dear old Samuel Johnson, who wrote the dictionary, he didn't even follow his own rules.
No.
So
But it's a really mixed up language.
it
So
really is.
we're not far from Reading, and people can do a lot of reading in Reading.
Yeah.
And I'm personally from South London. There's definitely an R and an F in that.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, that's the thing. But as an adult, you learn these rules aren't really rules.
Mm-hmm.
They are just, as you said, they are little lies.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think primary education works on lying, not in a horrible way, but to simplify it down, you have to lie at that level.
Absolutely. And you do need to get the concepts across. So this is where the linguistic part comes in. I always say this can sometimes say, or this often makes us think about the sound, whatever it is. But and there are a couple of letters that are true to their sounds. only have one sound, but not so many. So I tend to say sometimes this says this, but and then occasionally I'll say this letter pattern, OUGH, there's a good one. This has loads of different jobs. So don't worry too much about this one, but it could be this, 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 or this. And then I find there's not so much confusion
Yeah.
because it's very transparent.
And generally, there is a rule that if you have just GH on its OUGH on its own, it's that sound. But as soon as you put a T on it, it's changed. And there's enough thought has gone into that.
Very good.
I had to think about that.
Very good.
But it is once you learn that they're not so fixed, but as a child, you give a rule and you're in that, you have to follow rules. You go through that period of 2 where you get at 2 years old, you're going, I could say no. Then you learn you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
So you're now told, I could say no, but you do not.
Mhm.
Then you get to school and you're like, well, I can't say no.
Yeah.
And so basically you're going, well, yeah, this doesn't work. This doesn't make sense.
And that's just my theory, but I think that's where the confusion can start. And then you've got the safety aspect. It's not like your story. It wasn't actually safe for you to go and ask how to spell done. It should have been, but it wasn't. So that's then putting that emotional response in. Now, when, as we said at the beginning, when we're in a dysregulated state with our nervous system, that causes all kinds of triggers.
Yeah.
And one of those can be, the brain, the subconscious, again, this is my theory, I don't want to look at the text. And not only do I not want to look at it, I definitely don't want to store anything to do with the letters or words in my memory. And that's another part, because I think there's two aspects to how the brain can be dealing with text that are causing trouble for the children I see and adults. First is the text can be perceived as distorted, moving, blurring, disappearing. I had one child who just after suddenly he could read, he couldn't, and then he could. And I said, what's changed? He said, oh, the letters don't disappear anymore. And he didn't realize till we changed how his brain was dealing with letters. But prior to the process, he couldn't articulate it. He thought it was the same for everybody, which he would, of course. That's why children can't tell you what's happening, or even some adults, because to them it's normal. But he said, oh, yeah. He said, yeah, the letters used to disappear while I was trying to read. Now they stay there so I can read. So our brains can do amazing things. So there's that distortion element, but also you need somewhere to put the information.
Yes.
Okay. So imagine you go shopping and you spend time, money, effort, you bring the shopping back, you get home. There's no cupboard, there's no fridge, there's no freezer. There's nowhere to put anything. It's got to go, isn't it? Got to get rid of it. Now imagine that happening in the brain for words. Oh, and I forgot the bit. When you come to make dinner, you've got nothing in your cupboards. So you can't make a dinner. You can't do anything. You've got to start again.
And also you probably wouldn't go shopping because there's no point.
Exactly. If this cycle goes on, you give up. It's pointless. It's going to get depressing. You get really hungry
Yes.
as well, of course, in this analogy. So now imagine this is similar for a lot of the children and adults I work with. So they see the words, they might even be able to read them perfectly clearly. So it looks like they're fine. And they may well not be looking at the middle of the words when they're doing that, as you said. But the information goes in, but somehow bypasses this storage cupboard, this specific area in the brain. It just isn't there, or there's no access to it. So it literally is like it goes in one ear and out the other. There's nowhere to put it. So it's in the bin, it's gone. When you come to spell done, I haven't got one in my cupboard. I can't find it, so I can't recreate it. So that's another issue. You've got the distortion element and or the storage element.
It's interesting. My colleague, John, I enjoy reading, but I don't get much time because if I can only read a bit of a book, why read it? If I need to be able to get enough of it or even finish in it quite quickly, or I won't start.
Right.
So as long as I can finish it within a couple of days, so a bit of holiday time, I'll read. But just randomly, I can't just pick up a book because when can I next pick it up? But I do enjoy it and I think about it, and it generally percolates my thoughts for a couple of weeks afterwards. My colleague John, who is spectrumy on the somewheres, we're not sure yet, we're going to find out. He hates reading.
Mm-hmm.
He will read the internet all day long. He will learn. He will read factual books.
Uh-huh.
But when he's reading a book for pleasure, even a book recommended to him, he just feels his job is to get through that book as quickly as possible, and nothing goes in. He goes, I can read a page and I get to the end and nothing's gone in, so I have to start again. So why do it?
Yes, exactly that.
And it's really interesting that when it's reading a manual or a guide on how to do something on the text that we're doing, he is there. It's brilliant. But that reading for pleasure, it's just something which doesn't work. And he feels like almost that he should be doing something else which is more worthy of his time.
That's really interesting. So now my brain's whirring, you see, because I'm a problem solver.
Me and him both are. And he's telling me this, and I'm going, oh, really interesting.
Yeah.
Can he not just, like, we're going, have you tried audiobooks? And there's a new thing, I can't remember what it's called, where it shortens books. It uses AI to summarize his books.
Blinkist?
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
But he hated it
Mm,
because it was the AI.
right.
And in my head, I'm going, is the AI reads them, ones he's had. It's not a person reading it.
Oh,
And
okay.
he hears the disjointed text. So he's hearing it kind of cut off, the tone's not right. And in my head, it's like, get AI to summarize a book, but get a human to read it. It'll be easier to listen to. So he's trying lots of different things and trying to work out what will work.
So I'm sorry, I've got to delve into this now because I'm intrigued.
I will give the answers I can.
Yes. I hope he doesn't mind. When he's doing the tech stuff and the manuals, is he doing reading a bit and doing a bit? Like applying it as he goes along?
Might not be straight away, but he has a problem he is solving.
Ah. So he's got something to hang it on.
Yes.
Right. So that might be the difference. But what it sounds like he's experiencing, mustn't make assumptions because that's always a dangerous thing to do, is similar to so many of the people I work with. Now, especially you imagine the children trying to revise or do a comprehension. I'm reading it, I'm reading it, I'm reading it. I have no idea. I can't even tell you 3 words I've just read. Oh my goodness, that is such a problem for people. And it goes unnoticed because they can read the words out loud, but they can't store it. It's no cupboard.
That hook to hang it on is a really important thing for me. If you give me information, if I haven't got something to hang it on, it's like kind of goes out. So when me and him go do our computer training, we learn getting course being trained by Microsoft to get our qualifications and do all this tech stuff, which is really boring. But because we're using it for a purpose, as they're telling them, I'm translating it and what it would mean for us,
Ah,
which means I can hook it onto something, which then means I can spin it around, play with it in my head, and then I can ask questions to check my understanding. And it's that I call it contextualizing,
yeah.
but it's that linking it to something that I'm doing so I can understand what's being. If I can't do that, so sometimes in the course, they go to stuff we're never going to use. And I'm just like, I'm just not even going to listen because there's no point. I might listen to the bits I have to for the exams. I'm never going to use that. So it just goes out. But the bits we use, because I've got that hook, it's there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But how do you know what that hook is when you're a child? My hook is there because I'm an adult and I've got my job and I know what I need to know. When you're a child, how do you know?
Wow, that's a good question because you haven't explored all the options, have you? And also, I think as children, we're often told what we should be, you know, at school, we're told what we need to know, aren't we? It doesn't matter if you're interested in the Romans or not, you're going to learn about it or whatever some of the comprehension texts are so dry, and they're expected to delve into it. And sorry, I know.
Do not start me on
Should
this
we not
topic.
start on that? That
Because
could
I would just
go
get,
on for
why
ages.
why are we doing Shakespeare, which I don't understand even what it says in the first place, and someone's got to translate it into English for me to then try and read between the lines. And I always love it. I heard on the radio, which I love this. It was at some book signing, and someone goes, in the story, this character had a blue jumper on. Was that a metaphor for, his longing for the sea and blah, 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 blah. And the bloke went, no, I had a blue jumper on that day. So I looked down and went, blue jumper.
Ah,
And
look.
I'm literally going, how do we know that's really what Shakespeare meant? how do we really know? Is that just one person's interpretation that everyone now has to understand and say, yes, that's what it means? So do not start me on those dry texts.
We won't go there.
My daughter's doing inspector calls for her GCSEs, and I'm not getting involved because I hate it. So that's my
Yeah.
wife's department.
You need to bring it. If you can bring it to life, it's very different. I do work with children up to GCSE, and I get what you're saying entirely. I do like Shakespeare, but then I'm not struggling with the reading aspect of it. But when we can bring it to life and bring the characters to life and do it in a different way, the stories are fantastic, but don't sit someone down with that original text and expect them to wade through it. I mean, even someone that isn't struggling with literacy issues, it is another language, isn't it? Yeah, we probably shouldn't go down that road.
No. I don't mind Midsummer Night's Dream. That was my year 9 one. But yeah, Romeo and Juliet, which was my GCSE, I like Romeo and Juliet. I'll watch that.
Macbeth's good fun. So if it's got a bit of gore in it, that's always great. But yeah.
I've not been now turned off that whole thing.
Of course. And there we go, because your reaction to it and probably if you struggle with it, your nervous system and all the things we talked about originally, it's going to turn you off, isn't it?
But there are some amazing, I really liked some of Tom Hardy's Withered Arm, The Signalman. There are some stories I read which I really enjoyed, and you read, but I don't know why we're using text where you have to really understand and read. And I'm like, no, just
bring it up to date.
Yes.
Totally with you. That's it. We've solved the curriculum.
We should tally how many times I moan about Romeo and Juliet on this podcast. It's quite a lot, I think. The NLP isn't just the only thing you do. It's one of your tools you get out.
Yeah. So the NLP is what people often call it magic. It's not magic. Our brains are magic.
Yes.
So all the NLP does, it's a total game changer. Okay. And then it leads on to the second part, which is why I'm referring back to it. I will get further forward. So the NLP finds out what's going on with the text that makes it almost impossible, very difficult. You know, if it's moving or blurring or letters are disappearing or whatever's going on because everyone's different, that makes it really exhausting and tiring and hard to read. If you can make sense of it in the first place. If you've got nowhere to store the information, what that letter looks like, how do you link it to a sound? And how do you then spell a word if you can't store what it looks like, especially with our language? So the NLP takes care of that bit first. So it is creating new neural pathways. So if somebody's letters are moving around, we stop them moving. Because letters and words are just pictures. And we need them to be still, single, and clear on the page. If they're not, it's really hard to read or spell. We also need somewhere to store the information in that lovely storage cupboard. So we need those two things to happen. The NLP sorts that bit out. I'm not saying I cure dyslexia, by the way. I would never, ever say that, because I have been, people have said, oh, you're saying you can cure it. No, I'm not. It's just the literacy bit. I wouldn't want to change anything else about the dyslexic brain because they're fabulous. And we need all kinds of brains. So that's the NLP bit. Now, once you can see the letters in a still, clear, stable manner, once they're on the page like they're supposed to be, and once you can put the information away and find it again when you need it, oh my goodness, it's ever so much easier to make sense of all those things people have been trying to tell you for ages that made no sense before. So then I pop my teacher hat on, and then we can fill in all, I like to think of it like the foundations, but there's probably bits missing. So then I can fill in the foundations. Now that depends on where the person is. For an older person who's struggling to read those lovely GCSE texts, because actually nothing was going in, because the brain had put some kind of, oh my gosh, don't look at the words barrier there, which happens a lot. Then they can at least remember what they've read, and we can start to look at those things that they couldn't make sense of before, that they need to know to get the bit of paper.
Get that bit of paper.
To get that bit of paper. The rest of their life. Yeah, absolutely. Whereas you might have a child who literally couldn't form their letters. because they had no where to store it. So, and also the letters might have been 3D or moving around or changing direction when they looked at them. So once that bit's changed, then suddenly, they can recreate that letter and we can link a sound to it. So, it goes from learning letters and sounds right up to GCSE, and we fill in all the gaps. And then alongside that, of course, there's all the different learning styles. And there's creating that sense of safety. That's the big, big part that comes in, because now the brain understands it's safe to look at letters and words, because one of the reasons I think it was distorting it before was A, it wasn't working the way you were trying, and B, it wasn't safe to let the information in. It wasn't safe to see whole words because they're just confusing and frustrating and upsetting, and that emotional response had created words and letters aren't safe in the brain. So now with a regulated system, which is something else I try and work with a student to do if they still need it, with that regulation and that safety and that comfort, then we can start to put the pieces in place.
So we mentioned about not having kitchen cabinets,
Yeah.
but no fridge, no freezer, and all of that lot. Now, if that is the case, you could pop down to IKEA or once upon a time MFI. What's the metaphorical? What's the brain version of that? Instead of going down to IKEA, how do you help them kind of? Is it that finding those hooks? Is it?
So you will know the process I use.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the process is so simple. All right. Which is great because it means I can teach other people. So, as I said before, letters and words, they're just pictures.
Yeah.
We can't hear them. You don't listen to a book. Okay. A lot of the children I work with, they're thinking about sounds all the time because of the way we teach phonics. But actually, they're just pictures. So, the issue is with mental images. Okay. And that's just how we hold images in our head, how we hold pictures in our head. So, it's such good fun. The first bit, and these creative brains love it as well, I get the person to come up with a creature. It can be a common or garden creature, or I had a phenogryph lately, which was a phoenix and a griffin.
Okay.
We can have we can have anything they can imagine, or just a normal type of creature. So that's our starting point. Now, then I ask questions about their creature. Now, remember, it's come from their brains. So it's a mental image. So, first of all, I need to make sure that they are comfortable with looking at this imaginary creature. Now, for some people, they can't even imagine something. There is something called aphantasia.
Yes.
Okay. So if you've got aphantasia or are in that area, you can't bring to mind a creature. You just can't do it. It's not there. So first of all, we have to work on them being able to imagine the creature. That's step one. And we just play with it. And a stock phrase of mine is, I know you can't imagine it, but if you could, what colour would its eyes be? And you'd be amazed how many people can answer that. And I said, well, you've just imagined it. So we work with that. So first of all, we need a creature. Secondly, we need it to be in front of them so they can see it clearly. And you'd be surprised how many people put their creatures under tables, in cupboards, on the other side of the room, in another, in another country, because their brains don't want to look at mental images. So we have to get them comfortable with imagining this creature in front of them, and they feel safe and comfortable doing it. Then we have to make it still. Some of them do not want to stay still. Okay. So then, because our brains love metaphor, it's great fun. I say, okay, how would you make this 3-eared pink and blue rabbit stay still? And they might feed it magic carrots or have a stun gun or whatever. We just go crazy at this point. So we get it still. Then we make sure we can see all of it clearly. And each brain works in different ways. And some brains can take ages to be able to keep a creature still. And that tells me there might well be movement when they're looking at words and letters. Because if their brains are always moving pictures, they're probably moving the words and letters.
I find this bit I find it really interesting. With my daughter, we discuss this a lot because, as I mentioned before we started recording, she doesn't enjoy reading.
Hmm.
And I was like, "What do you see in your head when you read?" And she just looks at me really blankly, and I'm like, "Is there nothing going on?" She went, "No."
Hmm.
I'm like, "So if I read Harry Potter, do you read? If you've watched the film and then read, do you see it?" She's like, "No."
Hmm.
And whereas most people, I think, to me, when I read a book, I'm watching a movie in my head. Interesting. I hear the words. I've been, as you said, you don't help going. I hear the words as I silently read. They're being said to me. There's a whole thing of those who have voices in their head and those who don't,
Hmm.
which is another whole thing which I find fascinating. So I watch it, and the more I understand about the book or the scene, the setting, the better that picture is, and the better my understanding. So if it's saying something where I'm going, I have no idea what it is, I can just Google, which you couldn't do back when I was a
No.
child. You can Google and go, oh, then I go back to that picture and that whole picture changes
Wow.
and things like that. So it just grows and I can sit there and I can see it. And which means I'm also thinking about something maybe not be written, but maybe it was written earlier. Now we've forgotten about it. But in my head, it's still there off camera, maybe. I'm waiting for it to be introduced again. And that's how I read my books. It's fascinating.
I'd love that. See, I don't get that at all.
Wow.
I know. And this is why I love brains and
This is what I
people.
like.
Isn't it great?
My daughter's blank. Whereas if I read one of I struggled to find books I enjoyed, and I found my dead old Biggles collection,
Yeah.
World War II, Spitfire. So I'm watching it in my head. I'm watching the planes because I had some models, so I knew what it looked like.
Hmm.
So I was able to do all of that in my head.
That's amazing. See, there's such a spectrum when we talk about images, mental images, because if I say, can you see your creature in front of you? Or can you see the Spitfires? For some people, I mean, that would be amazing. I'm a bit jealous, if I'm totally honest.
I can literally I could describe you adverts from the 80s. Like I could watch I could rewatch that
Wow.
advert in my head right now. Remember the old red car and the blue car had a race?
No.
Milky Way advert.
Oh, Milky Way. I remember see, I'm a
The red car and the
hearing
blue car
person.
had a race. All they want to do is stuff his face. That he ate everything he trees. From trucks to prickly trees, but Smiley Blue, he took the milk. I'm not gonna but I can watch that advert and the
Wow.
words come to me, and it's like a photographic memory, but I can stop, I can play, I can rewind, I can also see picture me in the living room. And I talk to my daughter and she just looks at me like I'm
Yeah.
bonkers. I'm going, "No, I'm normal."
What is normal? And we're all different. Isn't it great? But yeah, you see, so I love that. And I am definitely, I'm not a bit jealous. I'm really jealous, by the way. That sounds
And you think
incredible.
that would give me an advantage in my GCSE English.
But not if the information's not being stored and going
But
in.
and the thing is, if it's interesting to me, it's
Ah, it
stored.
will because you've got the hook.
But if it's not,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
But that's kind of sensible because if it's not useful, throw it in the bin, right? You don't
Yeah.
want clutter.
And that's the thing. I think again with this whole thing around if the rules are wrong,
Hmm.
if the rules aren't working,
Why store
why
it?
store it? Because
Yeah,
it's not
for
going in. It's
sure.
just get rid of it. But actually, I remember everything I've learned about Minecraft because that is consistent.
Minecraft.
And that thing, when you sit there going, oh, they're not very, it might be going, not very smart, or he won't be able to read because he can't do this. And you ask him something which he's interested and they can do it all. You're like, yeah, he can when he's interested.
Yeah. I've had to learn a lot about Minecraft because one of the things is always, what are you interested in? Right, let's base stuff around that. Definitely. There's things I don't want to learn because I'm not interested in them. So it's got to apply both ways, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But going back to your amazing ability to do that, some people I've just worked with it, they're all lovely. All my students are fab, but just worked with one particular lovely child. And he said, no, I can't see it. I can't see whatever his creature was. I can't remember now. And in the end, I said, when I say see, you don't have to see it like a picture. And he just went, oh, and relaxed. I said, okay. I said, if I ask you questions about it, can you get a sense? Oh yeah, I can do that. I said, that's fine. That is enough of that's imagining it. So
Yeah.
it's very much about the language and how important that is actually. So he struggled for a while, but then he could see it in his mind's eye, but it wasn't like a vivid picture in front of him. And I'm a bit the same. I love reading. again, like you, I don't have much time, and I do like to read in a block. It's a luxury. It's lovely.
It is.
But I definitely hear the words, and I get more of a sense. So if you ask me what that character looks like, oh, I kind of know, but I'm not seeing it like on a screen or like a movie. And then some people don't see it at all. It's like the words are on the page, but they don't really make any sense at all in the head.
Often when I start a book, the character is more or less like a stick man,
Oh, wow.
quite basic.
Yeah.
Oh, he was 6 foot. Well, give you some. As you go on and like people react to the character or things happen, it kind of fills in.
Wow.
So when you sit there and you're like, oh yeah, and someone's not taking him seriously, or it's someone, or you might go, oh, it's because he maybe looks a bit young. So you then it's that's the bit as I read these books, the character, but at the beginning, it's quite a simple. It's a man,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, there's a man. He's this tall. He's got brown hair. And I'm literally, I just get a quite a basic. But as you go on, and it's about, oh, okay, so he's probably got. It adds more and more, and that character develops over the story of that book.
How fabulous.
It's
How
so
fabulous.
when this all goes back to is when you're teaching someone to read, we immediately assume, or any literacy stuff, we assume that everyone is seeing like my head is doing, or no one, or my daughter. And we make all these assumptions. We're all
Mm.
normal, air
Yeah.
quotes, but none of us are normal. I always like asking the question if you deliver presentations,
Yeah.
can you practice in your head or do you practice in the real world?
I practice out loud walking with my dog, talking to the trees and the bushes and things. I have to say it and hear it.
I can do all that in my head.
Can you?
I can stand in front of an audience in my head and deliver a talk.
Oh, wow.
And I can literally, I can do all that. And it's fascinating when someone go, yeah, just do a talk. And I just close my eyes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that'll work. And others have to walk along and
Yeah.
literally deliver it
I
physically
do.
in the
I have
real
to hear
world.
it. I actually have to hear everything. My husband is very patient. He calls it radio Lulu or white noise because I literally can't think inside my head very well. So you'll people must think I'm bonkers. You'll find me in a supermarket going, well, hang on, the bigger one's more expensive than the smaller one, but I'll be saying it because I kind of think out loud, which might be a sign of madness. I don't really mind if it is, but
But no, it's
so
all
it's so
different.
different, isn't it? And this is one of the things I've learned. I can't ever make assumptions about someone. So although my process, I can teach the process, the rewiring bit to people, but they have to be prepared to be creative. And I can't hear a parent say, well, there's this happening and this happening and this happening. And I might start thinking, oh, I bet it's X, Y, and Z, and we'll do this. But actually, I have to catch myself and go, no, don't make assumptions. You've got to go on what you find because everybody is totally different.
I like the fact you are starting kind of with what's going on in the head, that visual.
Mm.
Can you see that
Mhm,
monster?
mhm.
The whole time I've got some random thing running across a lovely meadow with mountains in the background. And you say pause, I can just pause the video and spin it. But my daughter would just look at me and the whole of this and look at you like like you're mental. It would just, she'll look at you going, what?
Yeah.
But is it so? I like the fact you start there because
Mm.
you haven't assumed we were all doing it this way, so this teach
Right.
that way. You've got to start there, and then you learn kind of what they're doing, how their brain works, and then you're kind of because if I've got a video and someone, as you said, aphantasia, is that
Mhm.
you just don't,
Nothing.
then to me, in my head, that's completely different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So from my experience, someone with aphantasia is really, really going to struggle to read and remember anything because even if I can't see a vivid picture in front of me, I've got enough images in my mind, flashes and bits of them to build up a picture so I can put it in my cupboard and remember it. But someone with aphantasia, they've got nothing to hang it on. So first of all, we absolutely have to bring their mental images into play. So that's creating the safety, that's playing with it, that's using the metaphors the brains like. Could we do to make something invisible? So a child might say, well, I can't see, it's invisible. And I was, okay, what could we do to make it clearer? Could you spray it? And they might say, well, we could spray it with something. Okay, let's try spraying it in glitter. For some, oh yeah, okay, I can see a glittery thing now. Some of them that might not work and we'll try something else. So we have to play, in the playfulness, we make it safe and that can bring the images in. But you're right, we've got to start from the baseline of each person. So I'll often get parents saying, oh, I can send you their dyslexia assessment report. And I always say, no, please don't do that. I don't want to know anything apart from what you observe and then what I'm going to find when we play, because it is play.
I always find it interesting. My nephew is autistic. All his fiction writing was based on factual information. So it was in my head. It's almost like he can't create something in his head. If he's seen it or if he's read it, if he's understood it, it can be in his head. But creating something brand new is something I think he struggled with.
Yeah.
So that's
Interesting
interesting as
again,
well.
isn't it? Yeah.
So it's like, okay, can only create a monster, okay, but generally it would only come from the animals they've seen. So it might be the lion's tail, a pig's body, whatever. It's kind of like going to be things they've seen. But
Yeah.
if you haven't seen that many animals, it's not going to be it's going to be quite a basic animal.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've read books with dragons and things like that, that's going to give you much more options.
Yeah. True. Actually, thinking back, because I again work with children with all kinds of different divergences. Autism is often one of them. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. But they're often creatures that are bits of other creatures, actually. That
It's
seems to be quite common.
that creating
Yeah.
something
Out of bits.
out of bits is easier because you can go, oh, we had, yeah. But actually, coming something brand new is like you've got to create it. It's like,
And that's a real problem when we ask children to write something. Just write about this. Oh my God, the blank piece of paper is terrifying for some of them. It can be really cruel, actually.
yes.
It's another block.
And I don't, again, I'm a digital person
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know this. I learned from the podcast again that I can't write structured at the beginning. My brain's firing off this mind map and my mind information's coming out in the wrong order. But in school, when it's a piece of paper, you have to write in the correct order.
Yes. I love mind maps.
And I could not write in the correct order. I'd part way through and I was like, oh, great idea. I want to get it in. But problem is I should have, when you do it digitally, you can just, oh, yes. Or just go back and edit it.
Yeah.
You can structure it how you want. And I didn't realize that was an ADHD thing, but it's the way I write. I generally do a brain dump.
Mm-hmm.
I can write 20 odd pages and I look at it and go, God, this is all over the place. And I will just restructure it, resort it out, realize I've repeated myself lots and change it all.
Yeah.
But that's fine. But when it's a piece of paper and you've got to get it right, no.
Yeah. I struggle with this, have to get it right first time. And I find that's something that causes a lot of my children to freeze and feel unsafe and go into that dysregulated state where they can't learn as well. Because it's not actually real life, is it? We don't get things right first time.
No.
And they hate making mistakes as well. There's a big thing around fear of making mistakes, I think. I imagine it's being addressed, but I don't know where it's coming from, especially with very young children. But I like you're saying, mind maps are great. I'm sure I heard it on one of your brilliant guests on your podcast. Lots of post-it notes that you can move around. I've stolen that. We love that. So I steal information all the time, by the way, mind maps. But anything where you can literally get all those thoughts out and then reorganize them it's real life, isn't it?
If you take ideas from one person, that's stealing. If you
Okay.
take ideas from everyone, that's called crowdsourcing.
Okay, cherry picking.
So, yeah, exactly. But that's the thing is,
Okay.
generally, as we know in education, generally an idea isn't a new idea.
No, of course not.
It's a come around again,
Mm-hmm.
or it's a rebadged
Yeah,
term. So, it's always happening.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I like, nothing being said. And that's why I like digital because you can just re-edit it and post-it notes in
That's
that
a
mind
great
map,
one.
connecting it all, moving it all around. You can do exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marvelous. I'm going to wrap it up.
Okay.
We have been talking for 40 odd minutes.
Wow.
It always flies,
Doesn't it?
and I love it. And I'm going to keep asking you questions afterwards, but we'll
Feel
wrap it
free.
up for today. So thank you for coming on. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Me too.
We will be putting links to other things we've mentioned and things like that. I'll find some links, and also to find out about all the work you do. So they'll be in the show notes, and I'll also be sharing your contact details. And you can find the show notes on our website, which is, as always, or you can find them wherever you listen to the podcast. So thank you for listening to the show. If you haven't subscribed already, click on that subscribe button. On various platforms, you can subscribe. And also follow us on social media. On Twitter, we are at The Sendcast. On Facebook, The Sendcast. On Instagram, The Sendcast. Blue Sky, can't remember, but probably Sendcast or The Sendcast. And guess what? It could be on TikTok. Sendcast. Who knew? And if you're looking for a simple, secure way to capture and share evidence of learning, or a way to capture pupil voice, a way to celebrate and share achievement, or a simple way to share information safely with parents, you need to have a look at Eversense. Eversense is our evidence for learning system that does so much more to help boost parental engagement. And to find out more about Eversense, visit the B Squared website. You can find out about our online training, our CPD, read our blogs, and everything else. And you'll find a link to the website and a link to book a meeting with me so I can take you through Eversense and what it does in the show notes. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Sendcast. It is goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Bye, everyone.